Hi guys, welcome to ArdaCon. My name is StarFall and I'm going to be running when the show starts for you. This panel is all about competition readiness, from character ideas to your audio, your judging, to the very last thing you're going to do for your competition, the feedback session. We're trying to get through all of your questions, all of your fears. I understand how terrifying it can be to step up on that stage. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I've hit the point where I am now the anime Milwaukee Masquerade head. No matter what, I've got to be up on a stage wherever I go. And I couldn't love it more. There is a very rewarding side to competitions, and I'd love it if you got to see that too. So we're going to get started by talking about the main thing you'll need to know for almost every single competition, the rules. When you're going into competition, there's going to be what I like to call 3 cardinal rules that you're going to need to know. Of course, the first one is competitions are there for fun. Yes, you're going on stage for generally awards, sometimes cash prizes, other various goodies that sponsors have thrown into the ring, but that isn't the main thing of the plot. You're going there and you're going to be surrounded by so many amazing creators. Just sitting and talking, you're going to have some of the most fun of your life, and I can guarantee that. My favorite times during competitions are when we're stuck in green rooms, just chatting and faffing over each other's costume, going, "Oh my god, I love this. How did you do it?" Seriously, best times, and we'll talk more on that part later. Our second rule, of course, I hate having to say this one, but we see it still happening. Don't be a dick. Gonna let that one sink in for a minute. The fact we still need to say it says a lot, but when you're in any sort of competition, whether it's being nice to your fellow competitors, to your judges, to the con staff that are working their butts off to put on this great show for you guys, be nice. The people around you generally talk and hang out a lot, even outside of competing. Word gets around fast, and you really don't want to be known as that competitor who acted all snotty just because you were doing whatever. There's no excuse for it. That's really all we can say on that matter. Finally, every convention will have their own rules for their masquerade/competition. Whether it's no fan art, only Japanese media, OCs not being allowed, read their rules. They're going to have very firm guidelines in there, and while many of them are going to be quite similar, you're going to find cons that have their very fair share of differences. I've jumped from some conventions where you're not allowed to do any OC characters to ones where it's like, you make it, you bring it. We don't care. Just show us how amazing you can do this. And those are some of the best. Of course, every competition is going to have its ups and its downs. It's your job to read these rules and figure out, is this competition going to be right for me? Next up is choosing your cosplay. Factors go into choosing your cosplay. It's going to be talking about time. How long is it until your convention? Is this going to give you enough time to make everything? Does this con have an application deadline? Some conventions only put out online applications, and if you miss that, they might not be able to get you into the show. Sometimes when those applications deadlines come around, you have to have 70% or more of your costume completed. These cons usually put those rules in place due to dropouts, and we can understand it, especially after working a masquerade for a while. It happens. Nothing wrong with it, but they are there just to make sure if you're in this, you are serious about competing. Keep an eye on deadlines for any competition you want to go into. You need to know when they are and if you need to apply to them. After this comes your complexity. Now for characters, simple doesn't mean bad. Complex will not equal you a guaranteed win. Both of these should go without saying. But that part is where I seem to get people confused. Just because the character is simple doesn't mean they're a bad one to compete with. It just means you have to nail all of your techniques. Let's use Sebastian from Black Butler. He has a very impeccable suit. When you make this suit, their judges are going to be looking at, are your seams clean? Is it finished? Does it fit well? How tailored is this item? If you nail everything perfectly, you could have a win right there. Versus, let's say, a complex piece like a Warhammer 40k character. So much detail, so much going on. If something's bad, you can usually tell. Sure, for characters like in Warhammer and other video games that include battles, fighting, anything of that nature, you can always say, oh, this was my battle damage. It is obvious, though, between hot glue gun drippage and battle damage. Trust me, your judges can tell the difference between great workmanship with on-purpose damage to, oops, I accidentally left my glue gun running on top of this piece of armor. They know, and those are both things to consider. They can equally help or hinder your points when it comes to your judging scores. There are some characters that don't quite fit in these two areas, and I like to call these interpretation characters. Let's take Snow White, for example, or any of your early on Disney princesses. The artistry of the time was quite limited. They couldn't draw out fancy designs for every single panel in those movies. They would draw thousands upon thousands of sketches, so they had to keep things simple so that it would work and that they weren't paying their artists so much. These limitations, however, have helped cosplayers over time. Snow White, of course, you can take her simple yellow, blue, red gown. You can use brocades, satin, chiffons, lace, silk, just to bring it up. These are changes that would make sense with the character. A princess is obviously going to have something that's a bit fancier. She's going to look nice and regal. While if you go for a character like, let's say, Naruto, his regular training gear, you're not going to see that in like a silk satin. It doesn't make sense for doing that. When you're making these, your fabric choices will count a lot more than you can initially think, especially when it comes to the beginner stages. Seeing a costume that is all satins and shine is going to be, this lacks some texture. We need to see more from you. Throw in some cotton, throw in some velvet. Not the crushed velvet. I know it seems like a great idea when you first start out, but please try and avoid it. That texture is awful. From here, you're going to start building. You have everything planned out, you've read your rules, you've got your character picked, you've got your fabric choices lined up. It is time for us to go into the world and craft. Next, we move on to your construction. Once you've hit your construction stage, there's a lot to do. Depending on how you've set up your timeline, you might have a lot of time or not a lot of time. From here, it just changes a bit. If you've got a lot of time, you can take this time, we're saying time a lot, but time is important. You can take your time, really nail down your details, and make everything shine. If you don't have a lot of time on your hands between starting and your convention date, it's recommended to do a couple techniques well, rather than doing 1,000 and half-assing them. There's no fancy way to put it. A jack of all trades yet master of none is still always better than a master of one. That saying is going to be crucial in doing all of your cosplay items. Mainly because they want to see some wow. And you want to bring your A game when it comes to going to these conventions with this immaculate costume you're working on, or simple if that's your tea as well. But while you're doing it, take pictures. I know It sounds so annoying. You're already working on 1,000 things at once. Your craft room is a mess. Now you have to take pictures. I don't know about you. I love taking pictures. I love just snap. Look what I'm doing, guys. Show me what you're working on. Seriously, I do that a lot. I think I've shared, oh God, I've shared at least over 1,000 photos with friends. I'm like, I'm working on this. What are you doing, girl? Normally I get pictures back and we're just like, hey, I see you over there. But this is going to be some really fun and really useful things for you later on in your competition process. As you're putting it together, you're going to need this documentation to build your build books. Not everyone makes one. I highly recommend them though, because they are going to be so nice when you walk in there and you can just hand one to each of your judges and say, here's where we're starting. Let me get in place. Seriously, I've done it before. I've gotten some great laughs out of my judges. I'm like, hold on, materials, stand back. Hello, please turn to page 1. It works. It gives you something else to present to them in judging that they're really going to appreciate. So your costume's done. You've put in your application or you're putting it in at con. Let's fast forward just a smidgen. You're at the convention. You're heading into the office for the Masquerades / competition. You've got to get signed up. Of course, talk to the staff, talk to your fellow competitors while you're in here, but there's some key things you're going to need to turn in. One of those is being your audio. Many cons nowadays allow you to submit your own walk-on music. This music can range from the opening or ending theme from the anime your character's from to the game soundtrack or some catchy song that you think really fits this character to a T. It's all up to you on this part. Of course, you still have to think back to some of our rules from before. Some conventions are, of course, PG-13, so your audio shouldn't have swearing, any sort of derogatory remarks, racism, sexism, yada yada yada, all the isms. Pretty much if you wouldn't hear it in a Disney film, it's not going to go on stage. And I know that's a broad spectrum because Disney has their fair share of innuendos, but work with us here. Use your common sense. There's a lot that can go into your audio as well to help your stage presence. For instance, let's take, of course, Snow White. You can use some of her classical soundtracks from the movie. Or you could bump it up with something orchestral if you're doing a character mashup. Disney Warrior Princess, Disney Star Wars. My brain is stuck on Disney probably because I'm wearing my Snow White wig. There's a lot of options here. You could go for something funny. You can mix two audios together if you're able to. I know audio mixing is not everyone's strong point. I still rely heavily on stuff I can find on YouTube because YouTube's a free market, essentially. But from here, you can really set the wow factor of your stage presence. Say you're doing a character from Gears of War. You can bring on that epic battle soundtrack with the pulsing drums. If you're more of a meadowy springtime character, something sweet with birds fluttering, tweeting, not fluttering. Birds can tweet. It's like, it's late. I'm tired. Give me a break. But your audio has endless possibilities. Most conventions will be about 30 to 45 seconds. I recommend at least coming in with 45 to a minute's worth of audio. Why? The tech teams will usually cut the end off. If you weren't able to trim your own audio, you're going to want to come in with everything precisely labeled. Start time, ending time. The teams at conventions are usually not cut out to cut your audio for you. They're already corralling hundreds of cosplayers, usually each with their own handler, plus their judges who sometimes have a handler, sometimes don't. There's 1,000 things going on. They really can't worry about your audio for you as much as they want to help. We've had this happen to us in the past. People come in like, hey, here's our audio. We weren't able to cut it. Can you help us? We still try. We don't always get through every single one, and we're sorry, but you also need to be prepared in that sense. I was going somewhere with that part. Audio, I think we covered that part. Questions, comments, concerns? In the doohickey? Doobly-doo. So we'll move on to our next part. Alright, you're finished making your costume. Let's hope and pray to the cosplay gods you're done early. It doesn't always happen, so we're going to talk about the build book portion. You can either do this when you're finished with your costume, or you can make it as you go, finishing off your pieces. Whenever I make mine, I like to make them head to toe. This way it ensures I am not going to miss any part of my costume. I used to back when I first never did build books, but after I started making them, these things honestly started to save my butt so much. They can really help you out. I always chalk mine with a couple pages of reference photos when I first build them. Mainly because they're not going to know every single character out there. There are going to be some that they're just like, who from what now? And it happens. It's okay. There are hundreds of fandoms out there. Nobody's going to know every single one. Especially if you're doing a mashup style character like, who can I think of? Let's say Autobots in Star Wars. I don't know. There's fan art of it. Trust me. They're not going to know what you're talking about. They're going to need some pictures that they can look at and be like, oh, hey, now I know what you're supposed to look like. I can tell you if you did it right or if you kind of missed the mark. From here, of course, head to toe, wigs, any sort of headgear you might have, keep working your way down until you've finished it. If there's intricate body painting, I usually add that on at the very last part after I talk about shoes / foot armor. This way, you're going to cover everything you need to know. Another thing I like to do is in some of my books, I include full fabric samples on different pieces that I have used because it shows them what you worked with and how well you worked with it. I've even included stitching samples in some of my books because different materials don't always work the same as some you've worked with. Showing them that you have put in the time and effort to learn new techniques through these books gives them more tangible things so they're not just staring at this like, this looks way too good. I think you might have bought it. I've had it happen before. I've watched people come in with costumes that were obviously bought and they still tried to tell us they made it. Avoid this. These books are a very good way of helping that, but they also help the judges to know that you know what you're doing. Even if, say, you're talking about some sort of woodworking technique. You don't know the name of it, but you can show us how you did it. I'm going to give you points right there because you did it well, and trust me, there are so many sewing terms, I don't know them all. I sometimes do this rolly thingy, stitchy stitch, and then it works. We understand. We're people too. We don't remember everything. Nobody does. And that's okay. These books will help you 1,000 times over. Plus, you can give them to your judges and have fun with it. So now you're going to be stepping in front of the judges. Once you're in front of your judges, this is where a lot of people start to get nervous. I've personally cried in front of judges at points because you're being judged. What more is there to say? I don't think anyone enjoys really being judged, but it's a necessary part of these competitions. Your judges are there to help you, though. They're not there to be the angry shirts that are going to rip your head off. They want to see you succeed. Oftentimes you're going to find judges who will be up there and they will be talking to you, asking you questions as you're going through your build book or your photos on your phone. It all depends on what you've brought them. I have had ones where my C2 actually, where we were going through and it's like, how did you get into this? And it's like, oh, I have a zipper. You can't find it because trim, but I have a zipper. Fun things like that will happen. I have even, in my fantasy Bakugo, I had my judge lift up my cape so she could see what was underneath and how I had it attached to myself. And just like, huh. She even felt up the burned parts and we kind of rubbed a little paint off. It happens. I hadn't sealed it properly. That's on me. I learned for the next time. Your judges will often have fun with you as they talk with you. Be understanding though. They are also people and they're going to get tired throughout the day. They're going to see so many people, so many characters. They're trying their hardest to stay upbeat, happy, and positive for you. If they slip up, it's okay. They still absolutely care about what you're doing. Don't ever think otherwise, even at the end when you receive your feedback forms. When you see your judges writing, don't panic. They are writing it down so they can also remember it later and be able to talk when they eventually have to deliberate during showtime. Speaking of showtime, that's where we're about to go next, but there's one thing we have to do before you hit the show. That is green room / lineup time. None of us have come up with a very good name for it yet, so we'll just green room. This next part has a few different names, but none many of us have solely agreed upon. We've heard it called green room, screening, call time, last call. It all depends on the competition you're going at, but they will each have a time where you need to be in the room or you will not go on stage. The time from there to showtime is used to get you lined up, make sure everybody has what they need, knows what they're going to do. It ensures your staffers know where you are. That way, when it comes time for contestant number 43 to walk across the stage, they're not scrambling all over the place going, where's number 43? Did they walk away? Did they ever come inside? This is the big reason why green room / lineup gets to be so important. I've met many people who have come to green room on an empty stomach, not understanding that once you get in for green room, you can't leave. If you leave, you don't make it back on time, there's nothing they can do. As sad as that is to say, you're kind of out of luck there. We try to keep snacks at ours. It doesn't always work, and with so many competitors, you run out. This is why we can't stress it enough. Eat before you go into the green room. Even if you're feeling so nervous and you're feeling stage fright that you don't want to eat, carrying a granola bar on you and at least getting a glass of water is going to help settle your stomach so much. There's a lot you can do during green room. Once you're in there, you can walk around, talk to people, faff about each other's costumes. If there's a armor maker and you want to learn how to make armor, talk to them. I can guarantee you, most people will just be like, oh yes, let me tell you every single detail about how I made this. Seriously, I have yet to meet somebody who wouldn't tell me about their costume. We want to talk about them. Everyone does. And while you're talking to them about theirs, they are going to ask you questions about yours normally. Just like, yes, I really like how you did this part of yours. I like to call this part information trading just because, wow, we cosplayers like to broker all of our information for everything. I once sat with a girl and we talked for almost a half hour on goldwork and embroidery. Best half hour of my life? Possibly. I'm sure I'll have more, but they were still pretty great. You're going to make some amazing friends in green room, and if you haven't, use your phone while you're in there. Take selfies with friends, take photos of each other. Don't forget to ask permission, of course, but make this time worth it. At some point in green room, Your staffers are going to come around and they're going to be giving you either numbers or they're going to be lining you up. This part is where things do get a little bit more tense just because you have to keep track of who's in front of you and who's behind you. If, say, you do need to leave your spot for something, remember who was up front and who was behind. Normally, they'll be looking out for you too, but you should also remember on your own. This place in line, if you switch with somebody on accident, both of your audios are going to get ruined. Let's say you're Naruto, and you were supposed to go up to one of the themes from Naruto, but you accidentally switched with another cosplayer. Whatever their character is now walking to the Naruto theme. This causes so much heartache, especially if somebody has put their soul into whatever audio it was that they had picked. They're going to feel crushed. You're going to feel upset because the MCs are going to be your name, Naruto, on stage now, and it's somebody else. It doesn't look very good. Trust me. It's why when the staff puts you in line, you've really got to try and stay there. If something's wrong, flag them down. Don't be afraid to be loud and be like, hey, I need a staff member, please. Try and say please. They are already running like chickens because it's so close to showtime and they're like, we have 1,000 things to do. It happens a lot. But they will be more than willing to come over and be like, hey, what do you need? Do you need your handler? Do you need to run to the bathroom quick? We can tell you how much time you have until you go on. Simple things like that. They will help you. Trust me, we will go above and beyond. We want you guys to have a very fun and enlightening competition experience. Only way to do that is to make sure you're as happy as we can make you during this. So, your number in line, you're up next. Your heart is probably going to be pounding right now. I know personally, every time I'm about to hit that stage, my chest is just thundering. I get this ringing in my ears and it's just, gotta do this. Seriously, I still will just do that little jumping run, shake it out, deep breath, let it out, and then charge. Depending on what I'm wearing, not actually charging, but walk onto that stage with purpose. Being on stage is where your presence is really going to be noted the most. While you're up there, the best thing I can recommend is to over-exaggerate your movements. It does sound weird, and I get it. It looks weird, but let's say you're just sitting face-to-face with somebody. It's easier to read their facial expressions. Especially if they don't put much movement into their body. You can still be like, oh, they're obviously not having fun. They're not smiling a lot. Your audience is much farther away. They cannot tell those small details that you would if you were having a normal conversation with a friend. This is why over-exaggeration really helps. Doing the big smile, the princess twirl. You have an entire stage. Use it. If you have a big prop you're able to swing, use that to your advantage. Princesses curtsy, swing your dress. If you have a fancy pair of wings, make them flap. Work what you have. If your character is one that's known for being a bit more stoic and not the most expressive, you still have some ways around that. You can get creative with your audio. Doing like the cue that with your audio. You can sometimes get a good laugh out of your audience, and that will still help your stage presence and performance. Memes as well. I know sometimes we get tired of them. A well-placed meme somewhere in your walk-on can really make a crowd go wild. A good time dab, for instance. I've seen that throw audiences a loop more than giant armors have, which sometimes makes me think, what do we do this for if a dab is gonna go nuts? Still, we do it. It's so much fun. Being able to wow a crowd like that sets different walk-ons apart, especially when you combine it with the different audios. I remember back at ArdaCon 2019, we had I'm gonna butcher her name, Queen Beryl. I always want to say Meryl, but it's Beryl. We had a Queen Beryl, and she was this beautiful drag style costume. Starts out as the Sailor Moon theme. Then you get that scratch and it's like, nah, bad guy music played. We went nuts waiting in the back just like, oh my gosh, she just did that. Just freaking out, having fun together. And it really helps. It just boosts it. If you're walking on to the right audio, you feel it. You feel that extra confidence from that music. Just like, I know this song. This is my song. This is my characters. I own this. Especially when it comes to opening themes. You can really work it on an opening theme. If your character has a song that they sing, play that up too. If they have a speech, you can alter that speech to fit your 30-second, 45-second walk on time to just proudly announce it as you walk across the stage like you are just addressing your citizens or your armies. Use it to your advantage. These stages are yours. This stage becomes your entire world the moment you step foot onto it. And trust me, once you get off that stage, you can feel the panic go as like, oh my god, I just did that. Why did I do that? I have no idea. A lot of cons will have people there doing video, so you can look back on that and be like, okay, this part looked amazing, but when I dropped it like this, I covered something, or you lost view of certain things that you want the audience to see. This helps you. It's also why we've started to heavily recommend TikTok. I know, our TikTokers are going crazy. People who don't like it are just going like, no. Downvotes. All the downvotes because TikTok. As strange as it is, the way TikTok works really helps you practice your over-exaggerated movements. You can see the kids doing all the Junko poses, all the other anime character things that you can think of. These are a very good way to practice your stage presence. Yes, you're doing this one in front of usually just your phone. There's only you, your phone. Nobody else has to know what you're doing if you don't feel like posting it. But it lets you see how you move, what you do, and how you can make it better. Trust me, I still practice quite a lot in front of a mirror, just like, does this pose work? Should I angle like this? If I go like this, does it look weird? Am I creating any weird lumps with my costume when I move? It gets strange. But after a while, you start to get used to it because you realize this is the process it takes to figure out what you are on that stage. I've met people who can really play up the shy characters. Like, oh my god, no, they're looking at me. Then you have, like, of course, the prima donnas who will just walk and they will own it and they will strut. You also have the class clowns and, like, the stumbling all around. Wow. Late nights get to ya. Stumbling. Anything you can think of, you can usually do on stage. Even when it comes to, say, stage fighting. Normally we ask, if you're wanting to do stage fighting, you have to talk to them first and make sure it's cleared. But that is a whole nother topic we're addressing on a different day. Yay! So your stage time is over. You're going to your seat. You're going back to green room. Changes depending on the show, but it is your time to sit and watch the rest of them go across the stage. From here, generally you get to watch the halftime show while the judges leave to deliberate. And then afterward is going to be awards ceremony. The part many of us have been waiting for is finally here. This is where things, of course, get kind of that half and half scary. What do I do? Scary. What if something else happens? When your judges get back, they're going to be on stage and they're going to slowly start announcing things like Judges' Choice Awards, Best Prop, Best Group, First, Second, Advanced, First Place, Runner-Ups, whatever way the con is doing it. And we get questioned on this one a lot. Why compete if you don't know you're going to win? And we've said this a few times already, but of course we're going to say it again. We are here to have fun because there's so much we get to do with each other. We get to just hang out. We get to see how our costumes are doing compared to our friends. And that part seems to trick people up when we say how ours is doing compared to them. While it is a cosplay competition, I like to phrase it that you are competing alongside your friends. That you are all on the same side working together for a goal. Not competing with them, that you are opposite each other. You're here to support each other, no matter who wins or who doesn't win. You gotta cheer. Let everything out, just scream, let them know they're appreciated, give out the congratulations. However, make sure you don't badmouth any of the winners. I get it. That can be hard, especially if you put so much work into a costume and you're like, what did I do wrong? And I know this never helps. You didn't do anything wrong. You did your very best, and that's okay. You will constantly be growing. But no matter what, you never failed. You've learned where you can go and what you can do. You're going to always be able to find a way that you can keep growing. For instance, when I competed with C2, I didn't place. That's okay. The winners I saw were amazing. Very well thought out. But I was able to come back home with my judging sheets from the next day of the competition. And this helped me figure out, okay, here's what I'm doing well. Here's what I need to work on. Normally, it'll be the day after. I've rarely seen a competition do one after the competition, mainly because they usually end at about 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. By that time, your judges are tired. They need a break. They need to sleep, eat, everything on the menu for life. They're going to go back to their hotels. The next morning, usually you'll be able to find a time to go into that judging room or the office and you can get these sheets. Most cons will let you pick them up. Sometimes the judges will be there to actually talk to you about these. For instance, when I went and got these, I was told, hey, you did a very good rendition of the character. They'd like to see more variety in techniques. Finish your darts properly. I didn't know that I was struggling with darts. We were actually able to draw it out, and he showed me a bunch of different ways. I'm like, here, these are the tricks I've learned, and it's been able to help me out. Maybe you could give this a try. I really appreciated that because it helped so much. It showed me, okay, here's how I can fix that part in here. I know to go something more complex now. I'm doing what I'm doing well, and they gave me a direction. And, oh boy, I have taken it. After that, they said, super clean sleeve, super clean sewing, perfect fit, great on sizing, love the buckles, more complex, you can do it. Gave me a very good way to go. I've also seen people come in and talk to judges where it's like, hey, I liked how I did this, but I feel I can do better. Do you have any tips for me? I have seen these questions turn into like 2-hour-long conversation with judges just going over how they've made some of their own costumes and being like, I've done this and this seemed to work, but if I had trouble, I tried this, or I also talked to this wonderful creator. When you compete and you start meeting judges, it really opens up this different network for you to see. Because outside of the big names, there are so many different creators out there that are going to show you and teach you even more things. Take those resources, talk to these people, and really, really listen to what they have to say. Personally, one of my fun things is I have this giant notebook. I like to write everything down. I have pages upon pages of notes and how to do different techniques, work on different costumes. I have an entire one on embroidery and learning that stuff because that has been a goal of mine. So I was able to talk to a few cosplay judges who specialize in seamstress techniques and embroideries to be like, hey, I want to do this. Where is a good starting point? I've seen these books, but I'm not sure if they're going to be a good source of knowledge. They love to teach, and they will talk your ears off until the con is over and closing ceremonies are finished. But it's well worth it. You're going to learn a lot more from your judges as you go through this. So, we have covered everything. I can't think of much more I can really tell you guys from here. Some of you might be wondering, why didn't I talk about performances? Gonna be straight up with you guys. I myself am not much of a performer. I'm working on getting into it, but that is still a part of the stage that I am nervous to traverse. Someday, if I get more experience in that area, I'll go for it. Until then, I've got you covered on this part. And I hope I can give you more on the next time. If you guys have any questions on anything we've covered, right over here in the doobly-doo, we'll be answering them as much as we can. Otherwise, feel free to leave comments down below and we will answer those ones as well. We're going to try to keep on top of every single question that you guys send in. Thank you, and I hope you've had a wonderful ArdaCon. I will see you guys at whatever your next convention is. Bye and have fun.